Today is the 24th day of the month of April. Welcome to the Daily Audio Bible. I'm Brian. Glad to be here. I need this place as bad as anybody else. Glad we can be here together around the global campfire, orienting ourselves to God through the scriptures and allowing them to guide and direct our lives.
God made you the steward of your sphere of influence, and he's expecting you to live up to your calling. And don't forget, at the end of the Great Commission, Jesus states that he will be with you and me always until the end.
Hello everyone, my name is Joni and welcome to Love Qualified, a ministry that is dedicated to encouraging others to experience the sovereign love of the one true God who has qualified us to be his beloved ones. This is another day in the life of a Christian indie author, and today we are going to be going through some beta reader feedback for my fourth contemporary Christian romance novel, The One Who Holds Me, and I'm going to be taking you guys through my process of preparing for my second coaching call with a second client. And yeah, so come along the journey with me today. So if you guys didn't already know, I have published 3 contemporary Christian romance novels. I'll leave them here as I talk. These 3 contemporary Christian romance novels are part of a series, the Sovereign Love series. So this year I'm going to be publishing the 4th and final book in the Sovereign Love series. I finished the first draft in about October, November time of this novel. And then I left it for a bit, and then I went back and did the second draft, which is like developmental edits, content edits, big picture edits. I finished that. I think I documented it here. That was sometime in early March. So end of February, early March. Then I sent it off to my beta readers. There were supposed to be 3 beta readers. Unfortunately, one of them couldn't do it anymore because of other life commitments, which is fair enough. So I sent 2 betas. One of them is an avid reader and the other one is a reader and a writer. So I was glad to have like 2 different perspectives. Obviously the reader, you could tell that they're a reader because there are a lot of things that they commented on from a reader's perspective. The writer, there were other extra sort of thoughts that they put in from a writer's perspective. So that was very, very helpful. So I'm just going to go through some of like the things that they mentioned and we'll just talk about them. So I'm not going to be doing lots of big picture edits, like moving things around like from a structural level, because their comments have shown that there weren't that many big changes that needed to be made. There wasn't any plot point that was like confusing and stuff, but I needed to do a lot of like fleshing out of some chapters just to answer some questions. So for example, there was a comment by the beta reader who's a writer about like the characters, sort of one of the main character who is Olana. So there's stories about Olana and Alex, but Olana, there was a particular scene where she did something that was not in tune with the kind of character that she is, because Olana at the very beginning, I started off portraying her as this very confident, CEO. She's taking over the father's business. She's relying on God to serve her clients. So she's very confident, like she's a boss lady. And then there's a scene where something happens and then her body language gives like shy and not confident and stuff like that. So one of my beta was like, actually, I don't think that she would do this. Like, it doesn't tie in with her character. So it's things like that. When I was writing, I didn't think that was a big deal, but it's good to know that from somebody else reading it, they're like, oh, I don't think that is in keeping with her character. So that was actually quite helpful to know that it wasn't that I needed to change that, and I needed to make things a bit more like their character a bit more consistent. And then there were also some other comments that just required me to flesh out some more characters. So for example, there is a plot point sort of like later in the scene where there were some revelations that were put out there, and then there were a lot of questions that came out from that revelation, but I didn't really answer those questions. Obviously, not all of them will be answered in that one scene, but I did get the vibe, that both beta readers were like, it would have been good to find out a bit more about why this happened, why is this the case, why is that the case. So I've actually had to go back and like flesh out scenes like that, which is helpful. And then another thing that they commented on was my translations for non-English words. So basically, I'm not going to spoil it, but there are some non-English words in this book. You guys know that my books, I write about multicultural characters, African characters. I've written, in the Nigerian culture, Cameroonians, Ghanaians, all of that, like my books shine with African culture. So one of my beta readers was like, because she relates with one of the reasons why I asked her to read the book was because she is part of this ethnic group. So I wanted somebody from this ethnic group to actually read the book just to see whether I was representing the culture properly, because I'm not part of this ethnic group. So they mentioned about like translations in the conversations, like sometimes it didn't come across as realistic the way the characters were using non-English words, because if it's something that they speak at home, they wouldn't be saying the thing in the language and then translating it in the next sentence, if you see what I mean. So the recommendation was to so for example, if it was a question, just write the question, and then when the other person answers in English, they will answer in such a way that the reader will be able to decipher the question that was asked. So I had to do some tweaks when it comes to that. And then the other thing was like descriptions as well. So my beta readers quite like those quite a few times when I got comments like, oh, I like the description of this emotion, I like the way you describe this, I like the way you describe that, which is quite like flattering to hear as an author, because especially when I'm writing my second draft, when I go back to do like content edits and line edits, I do really try my best to make sure that I describe the setting, like I try to use like the 5 senses when I'm in a new place. So for example, like, what are the characters seeing, what can they smell, what are they tasting, what are they feeling, so it really helps me to like describe the room, the atmosphere, and just to get like internal emotions out there. I always use the 5 senses when I'm describing like a new setting, just to get the reader grounded in where they are. And I remember asking the beta readers, like, what setting do you remember best, because it helps me to know if I did a good description, like I think I did when I was writing. So that was quite helpful to know. And they think that the pacing is realistic, which is quite helpful, because this is a door timeline. I'll talk about the door timeline bit in a bit, but this is a door timeline book, and I didn't want the pacing to be off, because it's like an alternating then and now timeline. So chapter 1 is a now timeline, chapter 2 is a then timeline, chapter 3 is a now time, so it goes on like that. And so it's quite good to see that the pacing of things fits together and they didn't find it confusing and all of that. So that's the first part of the feedback. I'm going to take a break and just give you guys a little book review / rant about this book that I've been reading, and then we're going to continue with the feedback. Okay, very quickly, I finished reading His Good Thing. It's a Christian romance by Faith Arsenault. This is a new to me author, but I've been seeing a lot of her books on like Goodreads and Instagram, like Goodreads and Amazon. She has written this other series called Love Is ... So the first book is like Love Is Kind, and then you have Love Is Patient. I thought that was a really, really cute like idea for a series, and I really love the title. So this one was a free book that I got to be as part of her newsletter. I absolutely adore this cover. It is so beautiful, and I was really excited to reading this book. Obviously, it's a really short book. It only has like 9 chapters, as you can see, and a lot of things with these like short stories / novellas is that you always feel like you want more of it because it's so short, and I feel like this is one of the things with this book. I love the cover, I love the writing style of the author. It was quite simple and nice to read through. But I have an issue with books where the one, if like either of the main characters like aren't saved when they actually start a relationship. So the female main character is saved, as you know, is portrayed like she's a believer, she's a Christian, and she's a daughter of a pastor, and all her family is saved. The guy, although he's from a Christian background and his mom is saved, he is now considers himself as atheist. So at the very beginning of the book, you could see that they describe like his lifestyle of like alcohol, casual dating, all of that kind of stuff. And when he meets her, obviously they realize that they are different people, and the girl is very upfront about the fact that she's Christian and they're different and they can't date. But then as the book progresses, the guy now tries to do things that would help him to date a pastor's like daughter. I just feel like it's a bit dangerous to write books like this where the female, especially the female main character, will be like, oh, you can change him or you can make him believe in God and things like that, when you don't actually know. Like, I don't think that after reading the book till the very end, I wasn't even actually convinced that this main character, the male main character, was actually saved. Like, even at the very, very end, like the last scene, the epilogue, there was no mention about whether he was actually like now a believer and they're proper like in a committed relationship. And I just feel like that's quite dangerous to portray, really, especially with young Christian women who read romances and things like that. I just don't feel like we should be portraying relationships, like unequally yoked relationships, like that. But that's my personal opinion. That being said, like I said, I enjoyed the fact that there were some scenes where you could see the family members like really trying to encourage the people who do not believe in God, like praying for them and sharing the gospel with them. I think that was quite helpful. I just think that we should be really careful and cautious about portraying relationships like this when one character really doesn't believe in God. They're not saved, they've not professed Christ as their Lord and Savior, and you're going into a committed relationship with them like that, just not knowing where their heart is. I just think that that's quite dangerous. Anyway, those are my thoughts. If you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts are. Okay, so back to the rest of the feedback. There was one plot point that one of the beta readers thought was too convenient with the way things happened, and this was kind of like in the later part of the story. And they said on the structural level, they just thought that things happened too quickly and it just fell into place, and they probably would have liked to see a bit more of a back and forth, and like the characters actually, going through a whole journey until they found what they were looking for. And I've been thinking about that comment for a while, and to be honest, I don't know whether I really want to go back and like lengthen out that plot point or leave it as it is. In the end, because I've gone through the feedback already, like I've already incorporated all the feedback, I think in the end I just decided to leave it as it is at the moment, and then send it to my editor, because I'm going to be sending to her next week, and just get her thoughts about it. And if I get the same comment also about that plot point, then I'll get some ideas from her about how I can go about incorporating it. But I think for now, I'm going to leave it as it is, because although I see their point, I don't know whether, I feel like even if I leave it as it is, it still will be okay. But yeah, because the thing is, it's a dual timeline. So if I lengthen that aspect of things, I'm going to have to lengthen the, well, maybe not necessarily. Maybe I could just have a bunch of then timeline chapters and then one now timeline. So I don't necessarily have to lengthen the now timeline, but I just liked how it was like an alternating pattern. So yeah, I think I've just left it like that for now, and then I'll see what my editor thinks because I'm going to be doing developmental edits with my editor as well, so I'll just leave it like that and see what she feels. Then they thought that the blurb represents the story well, and thought that the characters have distinct voices, which is good to know. And there were many points in the story where the readers mentioned that they were engaged, they wanted to know what happened next, that they could feel like the suspense, and stuff like that, because I was releasing the details of especially the then timeline like slowly, and I thought that was quite like great feedback, because that's the whole point, you know, of doing that. It's just like to build up the suspense. Especially if you've read book 3, you would know that there's a lot of questions that readers are asking about Alex and Olana, and all of that is answered in book 4. So I'm glad that they were able to feel the suspense. And then the last few things is that there was a lot of appreciation for the side characters and the role that they played in the main characters' lives. There's a lot of praise for like the godly friendships in the book, which I'm very, very happy to hear, because I like portraying godly friendships. I think that godly friendships are very important in our Christian walk. And then they also thought that the romance was believable, which is really, really good to know. So yeah, that's all for today in terms of like sharing the thoughts about the beta reader feedback. Like I said, I've already finished incorporating all the edits, and I'm just going to get it ready to send it to my editor next week. But I have a coaching call with my second ever coaching client. I have a call with them in about half an hour. They only booked a half an hour call, but last night I was prepping for this call. This client is working. So the last client I worked with in January, they were working on a children's book. This client is working on like an autobiography / memoir. I need to clarify whether it's actually an autobiography or a memoir. So I've been just writing down some thoughts. This is like my official coaching notebook, and I've just been writing down the stuff from the meeting. So from the booking form, when you go to book on my website to do like author coaching, there's a form that I ask you to fill out just to tell me a bit more about your project, like what genre it is, the themes that you address in the book, and what your expectations are from the call, just so that I have an idea about whether we're a good fit. So yeah, I'm going to spend the next hour just prepping for this coaching call, and then I'll come back after the coaching call to tell you guys how it was, and then we're going to round up this vlog. Hello guys, so it's the end of the coaching session. I had a 30-minute coaching session. Oh my gosh, 30 minutes goes so quickly. But yeah, this client is so lovely. Like I said, she's writing autobiography, and the testimony is so powerful. And they're setting up an NGO as well, and they're hoping to make sure that the proceeds for the book will go to support the NGO. And basically they just wanted to ask about my experience as a self-published author, although they're going with a self-publishing company to help them with like publishing and marketing and all of that. They just wanted to connect with me really, and just to check in terms of like what I've learned, and just to share some tips and tricks and stuff. So yeah, it was quite a very wholesome conversation, and that was quite helpful to connect with another author who's also in the diaspora, who is also writing their story, their God story. So that was amazing. Yeah, so if you ever want to have a chat about writing, editing, self-publishing, marketing your books as an indie author, you just don't know where to start, you need somebody to really coach you through things, offer author coaching sessions. So the link to book would be in the comment section. But thank you guys so much for watching this vlog. I hope you guys found it useful. If you enjoyed this vlog, then I would recommend the other one on the screen as well. Go and watch if you want to know more about my life as a Christian indie author. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that the sovereign love of the one true God has qualified you to be his beloved one. Take care and God bless you. Mwah. Bye.